like a wild train rolling, so wild and full of steam. Once you get us going, it's like nothing you have seen. With some fire in your belly, you'll move a little faster, and the devil in your eye makes you hit a little harder.
Hey people, this is your psychotic neighborhood LaughingMan, and welcome to the Cheshire Cat Studios video podcast. Now, everyone's biting with bated bitter breath for us to begin bartering burlesque, but before we do, here's a fair warning. We at CheshireCatStudios.com have a hair up our collective ass about the bullshit of the entertainment industry busting our balls, calling us terrorists, and blaming us for their own inadequacies. This is our open mic protest on the subject of internet piracy. And speaking of busting balls, one of these things is not like the others. Kenny, will you do the honors? And now to introduce our current panel. First, we have a few returning faces, starting with the creator of GameJams.net, the video game music remix video podcast, and a contributor to That Guy with the Glasses affiliate, BlisteredThumbs.net, Kenny Farino.
I want to be a pirate!
Oh god, this is going to be a long podcast. Next, this video podcast wouldn't feel complete without the lead video editor, as well as the creator of the hilarious and witty web series, Mockbuster Mockery. Please welcome back that cat in the hat, CineMax.
Hey.
Filling in for Star this episode and turning this podcast into a complete sausage fest, he's a student of animation and an animator himself, as well as a creator of two excellent in-depth fan documentaries, Epic Mickey, The History of Disney Animation, and Skyward Sword, The History of the Legend of Zelda franchise. All the way from across the pond to kick our asses if Ken and I joke about British teeth one more time, please welcome Will, codename B-Mask.
Hello everyone.
So, here's the question of the hour. Do any of you guys pirate anything?
No.
No, of course not. I would
Why
never
would you insinuate
pirate.
such a thing?
What is piracy?
I totally plead the fifth.
So, yeah, that's about it. See ya.
Yep, goodbye everybody. That was fun.
Good night.
But seriously, do you guys actually think that piracy really hurts the industry or not?
Well, personally, I think piracy so far has proven that all it can do is good, because I mentioned this a while back, but Gilbert and Sullivan had this thing in the 1800s where they had these musicals that were produced in Britain and they were pirated in America, and they weren't given any rights for it, and obviously they were annoyed because they wanted to make the returns. But of course, what actually ended up happening was their musicals became part of American culture at the time, and it ended up spreading their fan base and the amount of people who knew what they were doing, you know, far and wide. I think that's exactly what's happening at the moment, especially on places like YouTube and torrent sites and all of that, because the truth is, they're just making it harder and harder for the consumers to get their hands on the products.
Well, there's a lot of truth to what you're saying, too. As a kid, I was introduced to a lot of my favorite underground bands, primarily because of piracy. I heard an ultra cool song on a movie once, and because it was an obscure band that never got any TV or radio airtime, I downloaded the song from Napster, plus a few others, to see if that whole album was worth what little money I could scrape together. I not only bought 3 of their albums on the first run, but now I'm still a fan, and I own 12 of their studio albums, plus quite a few albums by affiliate bands. And if it wasn't for piracy, I probably wouldn't own any of them. And with torrents and YouTube, I still preview music. You can't go to Amazon.com and listen to a 20-second sample of Skinny Puppy, The Cure, Buckethead, or any of those other more abstract-sounding artists and get an idea of how the whole song comes together. But right now I'm just stroking my ego by stealing people's turns. So, Kenny, what do you think about piracy?
I think piracy really does not hurt the industry as much as they think it is, because companies basically want to blame something for their inadequacies. For example, let's take the gaming industry right now, which has some notorious examples of some games being pirated to all hell. For example, we had Spore, which was pirated more than 1 million times.
I can't think why, considering how good the game is, which is not a lot.
Yeah, it was basically, I have the exact figures right in front of me. It was pirated a total of 1,700,000 times.
Damn.
And it making it the most pirated game of that year. It is ridiculous.
Right.
But Spore still did really well, and Spore still got some spin-offs. what does that tell you? The gaming industry and any other industry like movie industry, etc., basically wants to make an enemy of something. So pirating is their scapegoat.
Well, from my experience, the record industry and the movie industry both post these gigantic loss figures, saying that they've lost millions of sales and whatnot. And as Mark Twain once wrote, there's three kinds of lies. There's lies, damned lies, and statistics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The loss of sales figures that the RIAA and the mpaa use are entirely skewed in their favor, because they always say that these are sales that they've lost, but really when someone pirates something, they really never had the intention to even legitimately buy it in the first place.
Of course, what's interesting is there's enough evidence to prove that the corporations have created the piracy in the first place. Such as, well, they were saying that CBS actually created CNET, which was co-branded with products such as BitTorrent and LimeWire. So what they were actually doing was they were promoting the piracy tools so that people could, pirate the stuff and then go back on their word and sue all the people who used it, which I think is absolutely, horrific. There was a story about a single mother who was sued by a company for about $3 million for downloading a few Britney Spears tracks, about 3 of them.
So, the record industry and the movie industry really has a history of trying to demonize the hell out of anybody who pirates. You've all been to the theater and you've seen that one movie where it's like, you wouldn't steal a car, you wouldn't shoot somebody, why would you pirate a movie? And it's absolute bullshit.
Of course, the worst one, which I remember from VHS tapes, was, and this is no word of a lie, they used to have, at the end of a kid's film, a big angry red man in front of a giant fire poking it with a poker, and it would go, "Piracy is illegal, it is a crime." And
Yes, because a
a
fucking kid understands what piracy is.
Right.
Exactly.
By Jove! This latest Pixar motion picture is of most exceptional quality.
You've got...
Watch out, P-Mask, you little motherfucker!
Let the man talk.
No, it's true. These kids are now terrified by this giant big red man who's going to poke them with a big hot poker if they go and do piracy, which is also ludicrous because a kid doesn't understand what piracy is. Especially, if you sit your little 6-year-old in front of Bug's Life and they start quoting the piracy advert, something's incredibly wrong. I mean, Daddy, piracy is a crime and it's illegal. FACT, fact, which is in fact what the Federation Against Copyright Theft. The fact that I know that is purely because I saw so many VHS tapes from an early age that had that advert.
You guys remember any of those adverts after 9/11 where it used to say if you smoke pot or if you pirate DVDs, you're a terrorist?
Yes.
Or even way
yes.
before then, there used to be don't copy that floppy. Anybody remember that crap?
Did I hear you right? Did I hear you saying that you're gonna make a copy of a game without paying? Come on, guys! I thought you knew better. Don't copy that floppy.
Oh, yeah. I think I
actually
remember that video.
that.
It's a 90s style Fresh Prince kind of rap video about copying floppies. It's the most
Don't
dated
copy that floppy.
piece of shit.
Don't copy floppies. It's a bad thing. The wiki waka. It
Kenny,
sounds
you couldn't
ridiculous.
sound any whiter.
Even B-Mask doesn't sound as white as you do, Kenny.
Damn
You
straight.
guys don't understand. He's real gangster.
You got that right, dog.
He's like wiki word, y'all.
I'm all down with the kids.
What are the justifications for piracy? I can remember I tried buying a CD, and ashamedly it was the soundtrack, and I couldn't find it anywhere, right? Tried ordering off
Forgivable.
Amazon and tried, doing all the legal stuff, and finally they kept on canceling the order on me. That I actually went and obtained it. I plead the fifth after that. But anybody else think of any justifications for piracy?
Yeah, well, one thing is the price. I mean, a really good example that a friend of mine was talking about the other day was the price of comic books. And actually, a lot of people said, well, digital comics, they wouldn't, make the cut. Nobody would want to buy them. But actually, the pirate industry for digital comics is booming because nobody wants to have to pay $3 for what might turn out to be an incredibly shitty story. It's not worth it in the slightest. A comic book I used to collect, which was, I think, about 50p when I was younger, which is really not that much, now costs about £2.95, which, if you're younger, you just can't really get your hands on that kind of money every fortnight,
Right.
It feels incredibly stupid.
So how about CineMax? What do you think?
Well, first of all, the bloated prices, because everybody keeps talking about like films, comics, video games, everything. But I also want to mention software, because I'm looking at a price for Sony Vegas Pro 11 edition, and it costs something about $600.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, Sony Vegas, albeit it's a great program, it has become somewhat of a more experienced version of Windows Movie Maker for a lot of people because of how, widely spread it is. And you'd think that Sony would start dropping prices because most of the people who purchase said product are just people who want an easy to access video editor for their home videos or just projects for the internet.
Right, because Adobe Premiere is like overkill for them.
Right. But they keep demanding prices as if though it's like movie studios demanding this program. And don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure that no self-respecting movie studio would use Sony Vegas as their primary video editor.
No,
Adobe
they use
Premiere,
Final Cut Pro.
yes, and that I can understand the justification of 1,000, but with Vegas, I'm telling you, it's become like the next Windows Movie Maker. There's no real reason why it should cost $600.
Kind of sounds like the company I work for. We had to upgrade to all the brand new Adobe software, Dreamweaver and Photoshop and Flash and that kind of crap. And so we priced it out, and we asked Adobe if they had like a price discount if we bought like 5 copies of the software for 5 different computers. And the price discount for like $2,000 a pop software was $7 each.
Fuck that.
I'm not even lying about that.
Damn, son.
We called up the Adobe sales representative or whatever, and they said, yeah, we'll give you a $7 discount on each one. And it's like, fuck you.
Do they even realize that they're essentially, in a way, condoning piracy? Because, I mean, you can really just go and Adobe Premiere, the latest version, like in a matter of minutes, if you want it.
Exactly. It's like you're willing to give them your money, and that actually brings me on to another subject, which is there's also a lot of piracy that goes on because the fact is there's a lot of stuff we can't get our hands on legally. For example, okay, I'm going to say it, so brace yourselves. The My Little Pony franchise.
Oh God!
No.
He's a brony.
I'll be brief. There are people who want to get their hands on certain episodes. This actually also applies to cartoons like Hey Arnold, and they're not releasing certain, series, DVDs, episodes like that. So people have to go, people who are fans who want to give their money have to get it themselves. There is no other alternative. And I think it's only fair that they, by pirating, they're actually saying, we do want to give you our money, but you're not letting us. This is our way of protesting. So, but unfortunately, a lot of companies don't see it that way. I'm still not sure why Hey Arnold hasn't gotten a full sort of box set as of yet, because it is one of the more popular series, especially if you look on YouTube, and yet they keep taking the videos down and doing nothing about it, which, what is anybody supposed to take from that?
It's on Netflix now, though, which is nice, but that is
something, yeah.
Yeah, and that does help with explaining justification for pirating, because people want the stuff, plain and simple. If people want it bad enough, they'll find it if they can't get it in a reasonably legal, justifiable way.
People will always find ways, yeah.
It's the same with game companies. If you're going to charge $60 for a product that may be subpar, like Shadows of the Damned, which is pretty subpar, then yeah, I think people want to pirate that shit instead.
I won't tell you guys how many terabytes of music I've pirated. But,
pleading the fifth.
Well, like some of the underground bands I listen to, I do support them when I buy their music. But if you guys compare the price of even like the online $1 a song legal ways to obtain music, it's just as horribly expensive as going out and buying the CD. And the CD it's actually more expensive than buying the CD, because the CD you got to factor the packaging, the shipping, the print costs, and the store's overhead. And then if you have a 15-track CD for $15 on the shelf, you go to Amazon and you see that same CD for $1 a song, it's still $15.
I mean, I lost count of how many middlemen you just added up before them, because there are a huge amount of them, which just adds to the cost, Yep,
and that's just my point is, if you buy a CD, you get the booklet, you get the case, you get the physical CD, you can burn it to however high quality you want, and then there's like all the middlemen and the printing costs and the shipping costs.
Whereas the digital download, it's just from point A to point B, and it
Absolutely.
still costs exactly as much as if it had all the middlemen, and that is ridiculous. But just to be realistic about the pricing, it should be about a quarter a song.
Exactly, because I mean, with the disc, at least you get like a physical copy or
Right.
something. With internet downloads, it's essentially a 10 megabyte MP3 file. It doesn't really cost anything. And publishers, developers, you really need to think of some sort of discounts or some benefits, because it's like LaughingMan says, if a simple MP3 file costs as much as a real physical disc, which at least it has some value, but if it's the same price for a vapid file, which you can just download for free, I don't see the real benefits of downloading as opposed to purchasing the physical copy.
And that's one of the reasons why people pirate, is because it's so damn expensive to get the legal medium.
Not only that, what about the justification that the lawyers and the companies have when, let's say you do pirate something that, you know, as a disc would cost about £7. I'm not sure how many dollars that would be. You know,
About 14.
that sounds about right. Would it really be justifiable for a $14 disc that you illegally download when they do sue you to cost
50,000, yeah, something like that.
50,000, 3 million, whatever the price. Like that woman who, as I mentioned some time ago, you know, she downloaded 3 songs, I believe they were Britney Spears songs, and was sued for $3 million. And then you throw up your arms and you go, the human race is over, they don't know what they're doing, you know.
I didn't want to expand on the pricing so much as just measures that companies use to try and prevent piracy, which alternatively is actually screwing their clientele more than actually helping them. For example, say you have game companies and say they use DRM measures to try and prevent people from being illegal pirates and all that crap, like codes that you need to input in order to play your game. I got Dead Space 2, and I wanted to play that game really badly when I first got it because, hey, I was a fan of Dead Space, and I got the shit scared out of me. So I went to play it. What happens? Bam, you need to put in a code to play the game. I'm like, what the hell? So not only was that a hassle, but my internet wasn't working that well, so I had to input it 7 fucking times in order for it to work properly.
It's even worse for the PC market too, because the PC games nowadays, they actually have like some controls in them where it'll actively always check if you have internet connection, and if you're connected to their server, so that they can continually validate your copy of the game every like 5 minutes.
Yeah, and it's really bad with PC games because Diablo 3, which people are really excited about, that's going to require players to always be online to play, even with the single-player missions, and that is going to prevent people from pirating it. Civilization 5 required you to be online in order to just install the damn thing. And like I hear rumors of the upcoming consoles coming, the 720 and the PS4, lame names I know.
Yep.
They say that those are going to be online all the time. Why
All
do you
discs
need
will
to
be
do that?
locked
Why is that
to the
necessary?
consoles. It's so they can kill the pirate and pre-owned markets, which I think is a horrible idea. And it's gotten to the point where they actually, you know, the retailers are saying they won't even stock the PS4 or whatever it's going to be called because they don't want to have to deal with that backlash. Which, if they go through with that idea, is going to hurt the retailers. So it's just a domino chain of people getting screwed over.
Well, it's going to hurt the consumer too, because I remember back in the days of like the NES where I'd have a game and my friend would have a game and we'd just swap them and play each other's game.
Yeah. Simpler
And,
times, I tell you.
I mean, I guess nowadays that might be considered piracy for some freaking reason. But, I mean, back then it was just, you know, you're a kid. You're only 6 years old or however old you were, and you don't have the money to go out and buy a $50 game every single time you want to play something, so you borrow friends. And now they're trying to kill that too.
See, and the problem is that the game companies, at least, are just going through so much greed, so much bullshit, that really, if they don't watch out, they may cause another video game crash just because of how much control they're trying to have over their customers. I see another great video games crash happening because they're not being careful, and people really don't want to put up with their crap anymore. There are other media that have companies doing this where they're trying to control people with anti-piracy measures. I was talking to you guys about this earlier, but ebooks can suffer piracy, certainly, because they're now electronic and digital, and they make it a lot easier for people to just get them for free. They may be cheap as dirt to produce, but book companies are upping the prices so that they can earn a quick buck. The measures employed by companies like Amazon to ensure that people don't pirate their shit include, and listen closely, the fact that they are able to pull already purchased books off of the Kindle devices themselves. This happened with 1984 and Animal Farm because people bought them from people who didn't have the right rights to actually sell them on Amazon. But they already paid for the books, and they got them ripped right off of the Kindle devices without them being told.
I guess my argument against that particular point is, like, if you go out and you buy a stereo at some guy's van on a street and it turns out the stereo is stolen property, the police can take it back and you don't get a refund.
No, but they didn't even know about this, though.
Right,
they
yeah,
didn't know that they were buying it.
Right.
And I do see your point there, like, hey, a person wouldn't know if it was a stolen stereo, but what if Amazon just came up with an arbitrary reason and was able to just take books off of people's devices? I mean, I know it's a slippery slope kind of train of thought, but that's really scary to consider, that even people who actually paid for the products might have those products taken away for no good reason. It's the same reason why I complain about game companies wanting to move to an all-digital field, because Cliff B, the guy of Gears of War fame, says digital gaming might try and help companies reduce their prices. Well, that might also give companies arbitrary control over the digital things that might shaft their customers in the long run.
I think it does depend on the company. I mean, I can't imagine that happening to a company like Double Fine, you know, creators of Psychonauts and Costume Quest, etc. But I can see that happening to, you know, all of the much larger companies and the publishers, especially.
Activision, EA, all those douchebags.
Yeah.
Capcom.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. See, I tell you what, these companies are just amorphous blobs. They'll all come into contact with other companies, just eat them, and the only companies they won't eat are each other, you know? That's why we haven't seen Activision and, what's the other one? That other one.
EA.
Activision and EA, thank you. Activision and EA, that's why if they come into contact with each other, you know, there'll just be a temporal flux, you know, nothing will happen. So it's absolutely abysmal. That's why we've got this whole Activision Blizzard bullshit that's been going on recently, which it hasn't come to anything of any importance.
Yeah, CineMax. Like, there's Capcom only allowing one save slot in the new Resident Evil game, and then, of course, Capcom's latest debacle, where they actually have content locked on the disc of, like, 12 or 13 characters that they were going to have available as DLC at a later date, but they were all finished characters, so you pay for those characters twice. It's crap like that makes you want to pirate the game, break the code, and play with all those characters before anyone else can.
Doing that's almost like buying like a Judas Priest 4-disc box set. You can play 3 of the CDs you bought at box, and the 4th one you have to go online, you have to pay extra to unlock that 4th disc. That's bullshit. So Max, we haven't heard from you in a bit. You want to chime in?
Anyways, as you guys were saying, you know, piracy for life, bro, I'm not gonna buy anything is inherently wrong. But if these film studios, game companies keep pressuring their potential audiences with these arbitrary ways of control, like DRM or content that's already on disc, but you still have to pay twice for it to unlock it. I can see why people would resort to piracy, because, you know, you gotta voice your protest somehow, and the only way to do so is, you know, hit their wallets, like LaughingMan says all the time. But of course, like we said, it doesn't really hit much because Capcom is still making money. I mean, Kenny's boycotting their games, yes, but he's like one in a thousand. The others are just going like, oh, you're overreacting, like, you know, they're not infringing on our rights.
They have a word for those people. It's called idiots.
It's called sheeple. But even worse is like government control. When the media companies start going to the government saying we want to censor the internet, like the big SOPA and
They'll make a new law.
Right. So what do you guys think about that? Government intervention.
I think it is very real myself. I don't know what you guys think of the possibility. Again, it can sound like a conspiracy theory if taken to the extreme.
Well, it's happening right now. That was the whole point of the SOPA bill, was that the government had a dictatorial say in what sites American people could look at. Like they'd put like IP blocks on the Pirate Bay, which is based in Sweden, I believe, and other type of torrent sites.
The internet is, I mean, it's still really young, and it's very uncontrollable, so there's no practical way to actually control it.
Well, 5 years ago, people were up in arms about Google censoring itself for China. Anybody remember that? I mean, Google went to China, and the Chinese government said, well, we have to censor these websites, and you can't show those to our people. And now people really aren't as uptight about when it happens to our own country.
I have heard quite a few horror stories. I mean, I know that our government at the moment, the Conservative government, there was, you know, huge news that they were going to monitor everybody's emails. They were going to make everything completely wide open. And I believe they're still pressing for it, which is, you know, it's not something that you can go to bed easy on.
Well, if you're scared about BMask, I can show you how to encrypt your entire hard drive. So
this will be fun.
It's literally impossible for anyone to crack it.
The only problem is I'm probably the least techie person, which is probably why I'm not as much of a pirate as a sponge.
It requires a 20-character long password, and you'd probably be screwed. Like, what's my password?
Oh, it's
Dog
that
ate
thing
it.
with the 700 numbers.
Oh, my Evangelina porn. Oh my god.
Classy.
We are gradually moving into real-life cyberpunk territory. A dystopian future where multi-billion corporations are in control of each and every aspect of our lives.
In a world where the government controls everything, one man, one rises against the challenge. Keanu Reeves.
We came too far.